Whenever you cut your finger or have a sore throat, your body responds with inflammation. The blood vessels dilate and infection-fighting cells flood the area. It results in heat, redness, swelling, and pain. All of those responses are uncomfortable, but without inflammation, we'd be in trouble.
You need some inflammation in your body. If we didn't have it, you'd be exposed to a cold and we'd all be in the hospital. But you don't need that much. When you have too much over time, that's when you start getting into the negative health consequences.
That's Dr. Melina Jampolis, author of The Calendar Diet, and one of only a few hundred board-certified nutrition specialist physicians in the United States.
What we're really talking about is silent inflammation. So it's not necessarily something that you see or feel. It's more of a low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And what we've learned in the last decade or two is that that seems to be at the core of many diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, even cancer, in addition to obviously a genetic component and an environmental insult. But inflammation is really a key part of the evolution of many of these diseases.
With heart disease, for example, we used to think that cholesterol was the biggest factor in creating life-threatening arterial blockages. Now we know that runaway inflammation is often to blame, leading to a buildup of infection-fighting cells that blocks the arteries. And now there's yet one more major problem that's been linked to inflammation, a syndrome of repeated violent rage called Intermittent Explosive Disorder, or IED.
These are people who blow up when they're frustrated by something or there's some kind of threat.
Dr. Emil Caccaro is professor and chairman of psychiatry and behavioral neuroscience at the University of Chicago. He says people with IED have quick triggers and no brakes on their tempers. They frequently lash out or throw things in a rage in response to a relatively mild provocation.
The average person doesn't blow up very often because he has a very high threshold at which point to blow up. But people with IED have a much lower threshold, so they do it more frequently, and it gets them into trouble.
Caccaro's study in the journal JAMA Psychiatry shows that people with IED have much higher levels of inflammation in their bodies, as shown by two chemical markers. The more of those chemicals in the body, the more violent and more frequent the rage. That would make explosive anger more than a character flaw. It's a medical condition that can lead to other mental issues.
The average age of onset for somebody with IED would be somewhere in the teen years, and the average age of onset for, let's say, depression or bipolar illness or other kinds of disorders is likely to be later in time. So the IED can come first, and it might be a gateway disorder to these other disorders. I can obviously see how, if you're making a mess of your personal life and or work life, how you could get depressed later down the road or you could get anxious. But the aggressive behavior does tend to precede those other mental issues.
If high levels of inflammation are behind explosive rage, it's no wonder anger management courses often don't cure it. But it may be more than just inflammatory chemicals at work. Caccaro says a brand new study finds a double dose of physical issues in people with IED.
Looks like people with anger problems not only have chronic low levels of inflammation, but also chronic low levels of oxidative stress, which would explain some of the medical problems these folks will get later down the road, such as problems with arthritis, problems with heart disease, stroke, and those other kinds of things.
But none of that means that inflammation is necessarily the cause of the rage, or that we even know which one comes first. But Caccaro says we have some pretty good clues.
In animal studies, though, when they've infused levels of, let's say, IL-2 or IL-6 into the brains of, let's say, cats, they can induce defensive rage, which would certainly suggest that elevated inflammatory markers could be causative. We're not really going to know yet.
Does that mean that a healthy dose of anti-inflammatory drugs could help curb explosive rage? Research on humans is just beginning. So we can't say yet that an aspirin a day keeps anger away. But Jampolis says there are plenty of other reasons and other ways to limit runaway inflammation in the body.
That's one of the most exciting things is we can really control this to some extent. It's not just taking all those bad foods out. It's also the foods that you put in that help fight inflammation on a cellular and molecular level.
Jampolis says that scientists are paying close attention to the ratio of omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids in the diet as a source of inflammation. Omega-3s are good, omega-6s are bad.
There are omega-6 fatty acids that actually are pro-inflammatory, Where do they come from in our diet? They come from a lot of the vegetable oils that we're consuming that are the corn oil, the soybean oil, the safflower. So those are rich in omega-6. We're consuming a lot more of those, and those trigger a pro-inflammatory reaction by the body. And omega-3 fatty acids, for example, on the other hand, trigger an anti-inflammatory reaction.
The best natural source of omega-3s is fish. Thousands of years ago, fish were more a part of the diet, so Jampolis says most cavemen probably consumed about a 2-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. Today, almost no one achieves that. Even the Mediterranean diet that's famous for health promotion has a ratio of about 3-to-1. And the standard American diet, Jampolis says it's more like 20-to-1. That's why she recommends something extra.
When it comes to supplementation, purity and potency are a very important part of the equation. The average supplement that you can get, inexpensive, really only has about 30% purity. So the rest of it is different fats in the fish oil, saturated fat. It may even have some impurities. So the company that I'm working with now, Omax3, has a 91% pure fish oil product. This wasn't possible. To have this pure of a supplement wasn't possible 10 years ago because we didn't have the technology to distill these omega-3 fatty acids. So this is really a newer category, but I think in this one particular instance, purity is not a marketing hype and you get what you pay for to some extent. But if you're taking 1,000 milligrams of fish oil and you're only getting 300 milligrams of EPA and DHA, that's going to have health implications. You're not going to have the benefits that you would from a more pure supplement.
Jampolis says it's likely that inflammation will get more and more attention in the future. Tests for inflammation markers like C-reactive protein may become more common, and if people score highly, they could be prescribed a regimen to reduce it, the same way people now take drugs for high cholesterol. You can find out more about Dr. Melina Jampolis at drmelina.com. You can learn more about all our guests through our website, radiohealthjournal.net. Our production director is Sean Waldron. I'm Nancy Benson.
If you're among the millions of Americans who get cold sores, you know these blisters on the lips can be both physically and emotionally painful. Cold and flu season means cold sore season too, according to New York City dermatologist Dr. Neil Sadik.
Lips can endure a lot of damage during the winter, with low temperatures and humidity leading to dry, cracked, and chapped lips. The cold and flu season is often accompanied by cold sores, which may be triggered by fever. But this year, you can do something about the pain and appearance of cold sores with a treatment like Carmex Cold Sore Treatment.
Carmex Cold Sore Treatment, selected by consumers as a 2015 Product of the Year, is distinctly different from other over-the-counter cold sore products. It is the only spot treatment that instantly relieves pain and itch with 10% benzocaine, while also minimizing the appearance of the cold sore. Find out more about Carmex Cold Sore Treatment at mycarmex.com.
Almost twice as many U.S. adults call a healthcare professional when their child experiences flu symptoms versus when they personally experience flu symptoms, according to a new survey from the National Foundation for Infectious Diseases, NFID, and Genentech. Many adults also incorrectly believe that when the flu hits someone in their household, they will get sick as well. Dr. William Schaffner, NFID Medical Director, explains why this isn't true.
It's important for adults to take care of themselves as well as those they care for, including children. The virus doesn't have to take down your whole family. If one person gets sick, there are ways to fight flu. Prescription flu medicines can help you get better faster and may prevent others in your household from getting the flu.
An annual vaccination and everyday preventative actions, like washing your hands, are still the best ways to help stop the spread of the flu. Visit nfid.org and flufax.com for more flu-fighting tips.
Medicare and their list of suppliers continue to change, so if you have diabetes, it may affect where you get your testing supplies. But rest assured that your #1 doctor-recommended one-touch testing supplies are always covered by Medicare Part B at your local pharmacy and approved mail-order suppliers. Dr. Brian Levy, Chief Medical Officer at LifeScan, maker of one-touch products.
Some mail-order suppliers may offer a limited selection of diabetes testing supplies. They may try to switch you to a different brand, saying your current products are no longer covered. That's just not true. you are entitled to continue using the products you know and trust and that have been recommended by your healthcare professional at no additional cost.
Remember, you have a choice. Stay with the number one brand used by Medicare patients. For questions about coverage or where to get your one-touch testing supplies, call 1-866-621-6216 or visit www.onetouch.com/Medicare. Medicare Part B is not a guarantee of coverage and payment, which may be subject to coinsurance, deductible, and patient eligibility requirements.